This director's special edition of Escape from New York features the original theatrical trailer, an exclusive interview with John Carpenter, our feature presentation, Escape from New York, and a videography of John Carpenter. It's a trip worth taking. A solidly satisfying actioner which delivers enough thrills to please the mainline hot weather crowd. This isn't the nightmare of someone who stayed in town last weekend, but the eerie premise of Escape from New York, the very fine-looking suspense melodrama by John Carpenter.
There's got basically two kinds of films. One is a utopian, where you have some bright, happy future that we all want to have, and the other is the dark one. And Escape from New York is extremely dark. It's about a police state, and it's about the world's biggest, most vicious prison. I think Escape resonates with the audience for a couple of reasons. I first wrote the screenplay in the mid-'70s, during the time of Watergate, when Nixon was ran out of office, basically, because he was involved in a burglary. The whole feeling in the nation was one of real cynicism about our president. I wrote the screenplay, and no studio wanted to make it. They all said, well, you know, we've beaten up on the president enough. We can't have this kind of dark view. So it languished while American history went on, and I went on to other things. When the movie came out, we were all reacting to the hostage crisis in Iran. And I think that Snake Plissken is a guy who takes on this mission and actually gets it accomplished. And we were all kind of ready for that, because back in those days, the military was put down during the Carter years and wasn't very good, and Reagan was just coming into power, and we hadn't really had Rambo yet. So all of a sudden, this became a world of a whole lot of greed, and the streets became dangerous once again, and it started to escalate into the 90s, and now you have an incredibly violent society. And it seems to me that Escape kind of attends to all of those things. It's kind of America, in a way, put into the future, and it's both our fears and what we would like to have happen. When we went to make Escape from New York, we only had about $6 million. And this was a big, sprawling, futuristic world. It was an inside of a prison. We had to do it very efficiently, and we had to do it with a big scale. 1977, there was a big fire in St. Louis. It burned out a whole bunch of downtown. So we decided, hey, let's move in there and make that New York, because it's basically an Eastern look. We shot at night. We wet the streets down so it reflected the lights, and the town let us shut off all the electricity for blocks and blocks and blocks, and we lit the city. So basically what you've got is this shell, an empty city with a lot of bonfires and rubble in the street. This was a look, a dangerous, futuristic look that we created. It's basically film noir. It's basically from the 40s. There is one real New York shot in Escape from New York. The rest of it is done in St. Louis. But we did shoot the Statue of Liberty. That was a real New York shot right out on Liberty Island. Brought the whole crew and everything, and tied it in. If you watch the shot, it's a long dolly shot that follows a character through a booth, and he walks from the Statue of Liberty on Liberty Island, and you pan him out into the Sepulveda Basin right here in Van Nuys, where the rest of the set was built. And it's put together by a kind of a seamless, dark mat on the camera. There was one sequence we had, I think you'll see in the film, where these helicopters are coming over Central Park. They're dropping food for the prisoners. We needed a big mat shot because we shot this in the San Fernando Valley. A New World came down with Jim Cameron as a matte painter, and they did it the old-fashioned way with a glass painting. You put up a piece of glass in front of the camera and you paint on it. And so he was out there in the middle of the daytime painting New York in the background. One of the problems we had making Escape from New York was the special effects, because they were enormous. You had an entire sequence where a glider takes off and flies into New York, lands on top of the Trade Center. And so we had to do it with models. So we went to Roger Corman's New World Special Effects Company. And among the people who were working there at the time were Jim Cameron and various others who went on to become famous as directors and so forth. And these guys produced amazing special effects for very, very little money. There are a bunch of screens inside the glider, and they look like they're computer generated. Really what that is a full-scale, three-dimensional model made out of white lines with a camera photographing it. We were trying to do what you can now do on your home computer and your video game. But we were trying to do it before the technology existed. Talking about Escape from New York, I have to really bring up Nick Castle. He brought something to this movie that wasn't there before. This was basically a straight action film, and at one point I realized it really doesn't have this kind of crazy humor that people from New York would expect to see. So I asked him to come and write it with me. He's an old school pal from USC. We went to film school together. His background is his dad was a choreographer and a lot of song and dance stuff, and he brought in the whole Broadway element. They go up, Snake goes into a theater, and up on the stage, prisoners are doing a very, very bad song and dance. Nick invented the Ernest Borgnine character, the cab driver who has the same cab he was driving back before New York, when it was a city.
I've been driving a cab here for 30 years, and I'm telling you, you don't walk around here at night. Yes, sir. It'll kill you, strip you in 10 seconds flat. Usually, I'm not down around here myself, but I wanted to catch that show. This stuff is like gold around here, you know.
Nick came up with the idea of American Bandstand as being the tape-recorded song that kind of undoes the president. His skewed sense of humor was something I think that we needed in this movie in order to not make it quite so bleak. In other words, there were things you could laugh at, there were things you could hang on to. We really needed that.
You always were smart, Harold.
Just one thing right now. Don't call me Harold.
A lot of people who are watching the movie don't understand or won't realize that there's a whole opening reel, 10 minutes of the movie, that I cut out. The movie started with inside a bank, a futuristic bank with robots moving along. There are people gathering money, and the bank is robbed by who looks like a maintenance man. It turns out to be Snake Plissken. And he runs down a corridor and up through the desert and into a subway station. And he finally takes off his maintenance uniform, and his accomplice is there. And he's hot wiring the subway train that runs basically from Florida all the way to San Francisco, underground. And very quickly, we learn that these two guys are bank robbers on a big scale, and they manage to commandeer the subway train and get inside. And they ride all the way to San Francisco, thinking, of course, that they've made it and that they're going to get away with it. However, waiting for them at the other end of the line is the United States police force, and they kill Snake's accomplice, and they capture Snake, and that's the reason that we find him in the prison in New York. Escape from New York was an action science fiction picture, but basically, if I had to be really honest with you, it's a Western. It's a Western in every essence because it's an odyssey. It's a lone gunfighter who has to go up against both the figures of authority and the criminals. And that's what Snake Plissken is. You know he's the hero. You know he's the guy you're rooting for. But he's a bad guy. He's a gunfighter. He's a guy who'll blow your head off.
You want to see him sprayed all over that map, baby? Where's the president?
Swear to God, Snake, I don't know.
Fuck with me.
I like to make Westerns and odyssey movies. Assault on Precinct 13. Actually, Starman is a kind of a Western. And the movie I'm just making now, In the Mouth of Madness, is basically an odyssey Western. It's a balls-out horror movie, okay? but it has Western elements to it. One of my favorite actors, a guy I love to work with all the time, anytime I can, is Kurt Russell. And he's a great actor, you know. He's my kind of actor. He knows a lot about the camera. He was trained at Disney in the old days to hit his marks and say his lines and do it right. Now, at the time, I had to convince the studio, give Kurt Russell a chance to play a tough guy. He was this Disney kid. And he'd been Elvis, but, you know, he really wasn't known in the movie business. And he just did a great job. He actually kind of did Clint Eastwood.
When I get back, I'm gonna kill you.
And he had this great idea for Snake Plissken. He wanted to play him a certain way, and he convinced me. He was the only man for the job.
Snake is I think, almost appears in an asexual way. I don't think he really cares to appeal to women. I don't think he cares to make friends with men. I don't think Snake really cares much about anything except staying alive and performing whatever it is he has to perform at the time.
Well, Kurt, among other things, brought a dimension to Snake Plissken that I hadn't seen. He brought a real strong sexuality. He has a scene with this girl inside of a chock full of nuts, which at Life Season Hubley played the part, and it really sparks. And also, Adrienne Barbeau, he and Adrienne shared a few glances together. When I was writing the script, I had to come up with a name for my main character, and I had a friend who knew a guy in Cleveland named Snake Plissken. He had a snake tattooed on him, and he could make that snake move. And he was a kind of high school tough guy. He had some ridiculous qualities to him, and it seemed like that's my hero. Anybody with a snake tattooed on him someplace who goes around trying to solve some problem, and everybody says to him, "I thought you were dead." That's my kind of hero. One of the most difficult scenes to shoot was the match between Snake and this giant guy, okay? And they started fighting with clubs with nails in them and trash cans, and we used a professional wrestler, Ox Baker, who's a fantastic guy. He's about 7 feet tall, 400, 500 pounds. And the idea was they were supposed to beat the hell out of each other, except it's a movie. Well, Ox, not having done a movie, he laid into Kurt. He was bashing him, and Kurt said, "You know, you gotta calm down, man. Take it easy." If you look at the film, you'll see a couple of shots in there where Kurt is actually fighting for his life. He's putting that trash can lid up because Ox is laying into him. So finally, Kurt had had enough. So he walked over and he said, "Listen, Ox, listen, man, you gotta cool down." And gently, Kurt tapped Ox in the groin. Pop. So Ox calmed down.
What did I teach you?
You are Duke of New York. You're A #1.
I can't hear you.
You are the Duke of New York. You're A #1.
One of my favorite actors is Donald Pleasance. I'd used him in Halloween. I just think he's a great actor. I've always loved him. I had to convince him to do the part of the President of the United States. He said, "Why me?" So I made up this long story about the fact that the President somehow got involved with Margaret Thatcher, and Reagan becomes a lord, and the President is basically their son.
God save me and watch over you all.
And he's come over here, and he's running the place, but he's kind of the right-wing ideologue of the 80s. That's who Donald played.
You're the Duke. A #1.
I think Escape essentially is escapist entertainment. It's got a lot of things around it that are swirling that kind of resonate in the mind, but really it's an adventure picture, and I think that's why people like it. They like it because it's funny. They like it because it's dark and it's got a lot of action in it. Good science fiction has to have an element of truth. There's something about it that you have to believe. You have to believe it's possible. I believe that it's possible that New York could become a prison. It's not that hard. Just seal it off. There you go. It's actually kind of like that now. And I think there's something that resonates for the audience when it's true. And there's got to be some truth in any film. And I wouldn't hesitate to call something great until it kind of exists for a while. Maybe 10 years, maybe 15, 20 years. Then let's look back and see what the great films are.